fellow investigators, and welcome to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. We continue now with episode 25 of Chaosium's masterpiece Horror on the Orient Express, with myself as the game master. Our recap of the previous episode will be presented by Jeff Wilkins. And so, without further delay, the players are ready. Let us begin our journey into the darkness. Jeff?
Thanks. Our last episode starts off with our investigators in the Dreamlands. We are aboard the Dreamland Express headed towards Czar. We started off with Frank and Eldridge attempting to create their own totem using the material known as a vert. Eldridge succeeds in creating a somewhat disturbing pair of intertwined figures. Frank fails his attempt and drops his vert on the floor. Dr. Dawkins brings up the characters from our previous episode that dealt with the journal. He asks Henry about Matilda, Leopold, and Marcus, and Henry's tone changes to one of a solemn mood. On to recap briefly these characters in a moving story. I encourage the viewers to watch this if they missed it. Eldridge strikes up a conversation with a group known as the Sarnathians. It reveals a bit more information regarding their history, one of which is that the Sarnathians were, or are, at war with the iians, another group currently on board. The Sarnathians claim to have won this war, and the iians were driven from their land. It turns out the Sarnathians are rather, as Eldridge, just genocidal assholes. They have rubbed Eldridge the wrong way, since the stories of their war have reminded him of the persecutions that his own family have went through in leaving Russia. Dr. Dawkins heads back to the cat cabin in an attempt to visit Ghost, but on his iian that seems to be stuck. The iian has been shoved up into the top corner of the spa area. Dr. Dawkins successfully frees the iian, and the creature seems thankful and continues on its way. Dr. Dawkins now smells from being so close to the iian that he decides to clean up first before continuing back to the cat car. Upon arriving with the cats, he does not see Ghost, but Ghost's parents are there. Frank has stayed in his room and gets to take in some of the scenery of the Dreamlands. He sees farmlands, although no people, and then the landscape changes to a more park-like setting. Henry proceeds to tell us a bit about Czar. It's the land of half-formed dreams, at a dangerous place that we should not get off the train when it stops for supplies. He tells us that in some rare circumstances he has rescued some people from Czar, but usually they are too far damaged to make sense of. While the train is stopped in Czar, boxes of colorful lilies and textiles are being loaded onto the train. Just then we see a very strange man who looks insane. In fact, he doesn't have eyes. He also seems to be violent whenever anyone gets close to him. After some discussion, we manage to get him on board with the help of the tentacles, and he's now below deck. The train leaves, and our next stop aboard the Dreamlands Express is Aforat? Saying that right?
Aforat.
Aforat. Lunch is served. There is a moment when Karakov is startled, and he claims to hear something. He claims to hear something, and he heads out of the lunch cart. We bump into him later on, and he has something wrapped around one of his hands. Dr. Dawkins meets Miromimar, who is Cerubian, the last of his kind. Dr. Dawkins learns a bit more about this character. Takes some food down to the crazy man in an attempt to help him. Eldridge makes an attempt talking with him and gets some reactions, but it's unclear if he's actually comprehending the words. Frank and Dr. Dawkins discover another iian shoved up in the corner of the lounge car. After Dawkins again helps him down, Henry joins them and they head below to talk to the other iians. They bring out a small golden frog that acts as their communicator device, called a squeaker. They inform us that the Sarnathians have been bullying them and putting them up in the corner. Some time goes by and our investigators find themselves back in our cabins or our common area, and Frank happens to notice something. At the foot of Dr. Dawkins' bed is a trunk, and he sees a smear of something. Frank mentions it to Dr. Dawkins, and the doctor goes over to investigate. He calls in Henry and asks if anyone would have access, and Henry says no, he doesn't think so. At that, Dr. Dawkins opens the trunk to a horrible sight, dead with 3 puncture marks. And that brings us up to date.
Okay. Henry is like, Mon Dieu, my God, this is a horrible tragedy. My friends, I must alert the cats of this immediately. But I need your help to find out who has done this.
Of course. I actually looked to the rest of the group, to Eldridge, and I asked them if they can give me a moment. I also tell Henry to calm down a bit, and I ask if he can get me a basin of water and a cloth, as well as like a silk sheet.
Of course, monsieur. Henry immediately departs. I want you to do a dream lore roll.
No,
You can actually all do it.
Nope, 95.
Nope, 81.
Okay. All right. For Henry has left.
Yeah.
Okay. He'll be back.
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you need time, Dr. Dawkins, we can head outside.
Yeah. He doesn't really say much, but he nods his head, and he'll say, "Thank you, gentlemen."
Okay. So I walk outside. I don't know what Frank does.
I'll just pat Dr. Dawkins on the back and head out behind Eldridge.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so
After just a few minutes, Henry returns with what you've asked, and he says, "Please, monsieur, I want you to understand this is a most horrible tragedy, and I am greatly distressed that anyone has been murdered upon my train. But you also understand I must go and tell the cats now."
yes, you can do that. And I mean, at this point, after his companions left, he doesn't bawl out crying, but you start to see. Well, Henry will see a tear or a few tears fall from his eyes.
Sure.
And as Henry is leaving, he'll this was my first friend, the first friend I met in the Dreamlands. I can't believe he's going. What I'll do is I'll lift him out of the box, out of the trunk, and I'll begin to clean up his fur, clean up his wounds a bit. And when I'm done with, is that me cutting out? I'm sorry. When I'm done with that, I will up in the silk cloth, and I'll do it reverently. And once I'm done with that, I will cradle him in my arms and take him to the back to the cabin with the cats and bring him to his folks.
All right. It seems like we're all jumping a little bit. The words. Are you guys all hearing the same thing?
I thought it was just my connection.
Yeah, I think it must be Google itself or Google Hangouts. So I guess we won't worry about it that much. Now, Doctor, in the process of doing that, I want you to do a medical roll.
And I make it. I have a 12 out of 50.
Okay. There are 3 wounds. They go all the way. I guess you could say there are 6 wounds, because the wounds seem to go. They're piercing wounds, and they go all the way through. Okay. But the most surprising thing that you realize as you're doing this is that there should be a lot more blood. There is nowhere near as much blood was.
So he decided to send me a message. I start to think, as I'm cleaning and, starting to think, who would have seen him with me on this train? And I'm thinking, the Sarnathians and the iians, I don't believe, well, the iians would have never seen him with me. The Sarnathians, I don't believe they would have seen him with me either. So the only ones who would know would be those three that we were introduced to when we first arrived on the train. The Russian, the Irishman, and the old hag. As well as the dancer. The dancer.
Do me another medical.
Okay.
Roll.
7 out of 50, so that's another pass.
You can also deduce that the death would have occurred right about somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 p.m. after lunch.
After lunch?
Yeah.
About the same time that Karakov stormed out, and then comes back with a hand bandaged up.
Possibly.
I will check the paws of Ghost to see if there's any sort of skin or flesh that might have been ripped off. Like maybe he was trying to defend himself and scratched, and maybe there might be some sort of fragments.
There doesn't appear to be. At this point, I think that it gets to you a little, so go ahead and do a sanity roll.
Yes. I make it, but I'm going to take some anyway.
Okay.
I'll take like 2.
Okay. And then you have wrapped up the body, and before you can leave, Henry comes. Henry shows up again, and he's got about 20 cats right behind him, including Sophie and Moochek.
Okay.
And they're immediately upset. And as soon as they see the body, or what is the body, they to arch their backs and hiss, and they're extremely agitated, and they're meowing, and they're obviously extremely upset. And Henry, I don't exactly know what Henry would say to them, but you know that he understands them and can speak to them. So he's basically he's just as distressed.
Mm-hmm. As am I.
And he says to you, well, by then, can we assume that that Eldridge and Frank have come back in the room? Since the cats are in the room, and
sure.
Okay.
I mean,
Henry. I'm just going to say Henry looks complacent or upset, but he says to the cat something along the lines of, "I understand. We'll do our very best to find out who's responsible for this horrific act." And he says, he turns to you, Frank, and he says, "Messieurs, please assist me. We must find who is the killer. The cats." He says, "As you well know, killing a cat in Uther is the worst crime possible, and of course that extends onto this train. It's part of my charter with the cats of Uther, so they'll close their borders to us completely if we don't figure out who did this and bring them to justice."
What I'll do, to sort of finish this off is I'll take Ghost's body and I'll lay it in front of Sophie and Muchek, and I'll look at them, and I know they're agitated, but I'll look at them and I'll tell them, Ghost is my friend. He was the first friend I met when I came here to the Dreamlands. You have my word that I'm going to find out who's responsible, and I'll bring them to justice.
And he, of course, talked to the cats. And Sophie's beside herself. She's not going to talk, and so is Muchek. So you see Henry sort of says, of course, we shall go there now. And he reaches down and he gingerly picks up the body, and Sophie and Muchek and Henry and Ghost head towards the back car. The other cats are staying. They're part, and Henry sort of says they want to be in on the investigation.
All right.
So.
Interesting. All right, so first things first. I'm going to examine my room and see how someone would have gotten in here in the first place.
What's everybody doing? What and tell me what you're looking for.
The first thing I'm going to do is examine the box itself. Of course, I don't have a forensics kit or anything like that, so I can't dust for prints. Despite how meaningless dusting for prints would be anyway.
Go ahead and do a spot hidden for me.
And that's a no.
Okay. Don't really notice anything except the smears of blood on the box itself. As I say, there was not enough blood. You also notice that the smears are kind of in a triple pattern, as if it were a hand or a partial hand or something. But it's hard to tell, of course.
It's not three distinct smears, like it could have been like 3 fingers or something like that.
Right, something like that.
How large are they? Like each individual finger, I guess.
You could say they might correspond to the 3 wounds.
So we can assume that it's either the weapon or it's an appendage. The iians, they're gelatinous, right? Can they shape their body?
I don't think the iians done this.
Not really, but they do have prodigious claws on their hands.
Do they have 3 fingers?
They have 5.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what Dr. Dawkins is doing. Frank, what are you doing?
So just to be clear, so Henry left with the parents?
Yes. And the cats are sort of wandering around the room doing their own looking around.
So, since there's a lot of you, and I'm referring to the cats now, we've kind of determined that we think that the murder scene might be somewhere else and not here. So maybe since there's so many of you, if you all could fan out and kind of search the train as best you can. And of course, I don't even know if they understand me or not, but I'm just saying it in the hopes that they. That's just one idea I had.
They don't seem to understand you.
Okay.
They're also not very capable of doing things. So they're just cats.
Okay. So I'll turn to my companions and say that my gut tells me it was the Russian. The timing of it all just seems to be perfectly lined up. But also the fact that it is perfectly lined up makes me question that might be a jump to.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I'm wondering though, because he called he called attention to himself when he did his outburst, and I'm wondering if someone wants to use that as sort of a red herring to have us go towards him as opposed to cover. And then the other question is, why would they kill Ghost?
Like you said to yourself earlier, it's a message to us. You know, they can hurt people that we care about. Maybe not just in the Dreamlands, but in the real world too.
Is it clear, Doctor, when you examined the body, did it seem as though they looked like they were knife wounds, or could you tell, or like something small and thin?
Yeah, were the wounds thin? Were they thicker?
No, they were thick. It was something that was thick and somewhat triangular shape.
So like actual claws.
It could have been some sort of a poker, but something that would have been solid, not just a flat blade. Yes, and it could have been claws. Although, well, you just continue.
My feeling is that the Russian knows something, but it's the Sarnathians. They have no regard for the iians. Why would they have regard for the cats?
Or even us, for that matter. Like, they could just be doing this just to see what our reactions are for their pleasure. Like,
exactly.
From what you've described them to us, I mean, they sound like nasty people.
They are nasty people. However, while I think the Russian is a good starting point, he won't talk to us. Or at least he won't talk to you two. If you recall, when we first went on here, he didn't want to talk to anyone, but the only reason he talked to me is because I spoke Russian.
Mm-hmm. I didn't remember that.
Well, You've actually seen Karakov. I don't know. He's actually kind of. I don't recall what you're talking about because he's
he was
affable than that.
Yeah, he was talking to us. The Irishman talked to us. It was just the woman who had the issue with us.
Yeah, I recall that he didn't talk to us at first. He may have changed his tune when I wasn't here. Because I remember very first time meeting him, that was the only time I talked to him.
Go ahead and do an idea roll, Eldridge.
Okay. 45, I pass. It's a hard pass, too.
Okay. It seems to you, on thinking about it, memory-wise, that just before you saw Karakov, you did see him having lunch with, or having a snack with Mackenzie? What the hell's his name? Yeah, Mac Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mac Mackenzie.
Yeah.
They were kind of sitting in the lounge together.
Okay. So I say that we fan out. And we investigate everybody.
Yeah.
That makes me nervous. If we know there's somebody on here that means to do us harm, we might be safer in numbers.
We're on the train, you know. They know that we're investigating. I feel like we're pretty safe. I could be wrong, but I feel like we're pretty safe here, Frank. I mean, it's not like they're going anywhere, and it's like if they try to attack. Killing Ghost is one thing because it's pardon me, cats, but it's a cat. It's it was small and it was kind of defenseless. We're not a small cat,
Mm-hmm.
So unless there's something more going on, I think we'll be okay.
I'm also wondering, when we, in our last stop, I'm wondering if something got on board that we didn't see. I mean, we were all preoccupied with the madman. Wondering, I mean, it's supposedly a strange land. Perhaps the attacker was invisible, more or less.
I wonder if it was the madman.
Just as you say that, Henry comes back inside, and he overhears what you say, and as he comes in, he goes, "Oh, mon Dieu, the madman! Perhaps he has gotten loose. We must check."
Oh, all right.
All right, let's check.
And as he's walking, he's like, "Oh my God, I should not have let him on board the train. I'm sure he is the kind of a person who would kill an innocent cat."
But he's been in there this entire time, and the tendrils would have restrained him if he did anything.
Well, let us hope this is true. So he takes you up onto the ops platform, and he uses his foot to open the door. And you go down inside, and indeed, the madman is restrained. So he's still in there. He couldn't have gotten out. And Henry is like, "But I don't understand." He says, "None of the other guests would have ever killed a cat. This is preposterous."
The thing that we should really be asking ourselves, gentlemen, is the fact that they got into our room.
Yeah, exactly.
They're clearly either more knowledgeable about the dreaming world than I, or you, or Henry for that matter, or there is something more nefarious going on.
Yeah, it would have to be somebody who's been on the train for a long time, traveled it for a long time.
Or something more powerful than any one of us can imagine.
Well, Henry says, "You have met all of the guests on board the train."
Is it possible for someone to slip past your notice?
Not that I can know. I can't imagine that.
So I remember that Eldridge, you made an attempt to gain access to the Russians' cabin or car, and you almost did it. You made it like to the general location. And I'll turn to Henry and ask, is that something that's fairly easy for anybody who's been traveling on here? In other words, Karakov or Mackenzie?
No, you should not be able to get into any other cabin.
What can you tell us about these two other guests you have, the Sarnathians and the iians? Like, I know that they're from the Dreamlands, but do they have any specific abilities or powers?
I don't understand. You mean powers? You mean like magic?
Like magic?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I am not sure that magic even exists, monsieur.
Yes, but this is the Dreamlands. I mean, we were able to form totems, and I'll hold up my church warden, out of something that looks like clay. And in our world, we would call that magic.
I suppose here we call it science.
Well, is there anybody with a specific type of science?
He says, "Monsieur, there may be things like magic. There is certainly one thing that you do find in the Dreamland sometimes, and that is all."
Well, excuse me. While we're in the cabin with I hate calling him the crazy man, can I look at his hands and see if his nails are shaped in any way, like how you describe?
No, and they're too small. Okay. But the madman hears you guys talking, and he starts raving, and most of what he says just seems like nonsense. But you think somewhere in there you catch references to cats.
And then I'll say, what do you mean about cats?
Well, he's not answering. He's just babbling.
Just babbling.
But as you guys are talking about cats, he starts talking about cats. But he's not saying anything comprehensible. Just more like, fucking cats scratching up our. So. You don't know that has anything to do with anything.
Can you clarify, Tom? When you were saying that the crazy man had no eyes, and yet you showed the picture where it kind of. I'm just curious, like, how would you describe it? Does he have like no eyes at all? Or
he has sockets, right? He tore out his own eyes.
Ah, okay.
And yet he can still see. He says.
Yeah. Third eye.
Or he's just nuts.
Yeah. Henry, I noticed on several occasions when we're traveling and we entered the kitchen area, it seems as though all kitchen work stops the second we enter. Can you explain that at all to us? Like, are these actually some sort of invisible entity that we can't see?
No, monsieur. He says, it is the policy of the train that the ones who do the work are not seen. He says, but it's mostly the train itself doing the work. There are other things working on the train. You saw some of them up front. The two ones who feed the animal.
I remember that, but I don't know what they look like.
They had masks. One was the happy face and one was the sad face. Tragedy and
they were human-like, right? Human-like.
Yeah,
their masks were similar to Henry. Yeah, they were the.
Yeah, and they were completely covered. Yeah, like Henry is covered.
So, are there any other workers on board that might have access somehow to our cabin?
No, monsieur. Your cabin, except you. And me in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's. I don't know where.
But that indeed is a mystery, is how somebody gained access. So.
All right. So let's go to the common area and see if any of the Sarnathians or the other three humans are out there.
Now, Henry says to you, nobody knows what has happened yet. So, do you want us to announce it, or?
No. But right now, I would like to keep it quiet. They may see the cats running around and might question that, but.
Well, Henry says then in the pretense of secrecy, in order to assist your investigation, he needs to go about his business as usual. So.
Understood.
Please keep me informed as to what you discover, and if you need anything, call me.
Yeah. What is the actual punishment for murdering somebody here on this train? Do you have any sort of rule sets for that?
He says for here on the he says no, it should be impossible. He says, but what we must do is, whoever committed the murder, we need to. He's just sort of like. He says, he says we will be going to Saranian, and we take him before King Kuranes. And
what can you tell me about this king? Is this King Sarnathian?
No.
Okay.
The king, I believe, is from our world.
Okay. Is he a just king?
Of course.
You wouldn't just be saying that for PR purposes, would you?
No, he is a great man.
Okay.
Henry, when we visited the Carbon, I forget the name of it, the storage room where they stored the luggage and so forth.
Oh, the Foregone.
Oregon. One of the large crates there seemed to be making noises as though there was something living in it.
Yes, we discussed it before.
So I'm curious, are there any other living creatures that might have been kept in the storage area? Maybe something escaped.
He's like, no, there's nothing living in there. He says, even what you saw is just Karakov's totem.
Okay.
Do you have any more of that vert, by the way?
More of it? He's like, it's difficult to explain. It's not like something that he gives you, or it's something that's yours because you're on the train.
I got you. All right, I understand.
I know.
Shall we go to the common area?
Yeah. What I want to do is, I right now want to look at people, look at their mannerisms, see what they're doing, see if any of them give us glances, that sort of thing. Hear what they're talking about, examine them, see if they are carrying any type of weapons, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I shall see it.
I'm sorry?
Hmm?
Oh, were you talking? I was talking. It's cutting out on my end. Is it cutting out on your
I
guys'
think
end?
on everybody's. I don't know why.
Do you want to send another link?
The problem is that we're broadcasting live.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
It is still broadcasting, right?
yeah, I can see it on my TV over there.
Okay.
Before he departs, Henry, his most concern is, how did somebody get into your room? So he says, if you can figure that out, then there's obviously some sort of security problem that he's not anticipated. And then he's gone. He leaves.
Okay. All right. So, gentlemen, let's head to the common room.
Yes, let's do that.
As we're walking, I'm going to ask Hawkins and Eldridge, what do you guys think we should do? Should we catch this guy? Girl.
Well, we'll detain him and we'll take him in front of the king and let the king decide.
We throw him in the cargo hold. Just leave him there.
Or we could throw him in a cell similar to the madman and have him restrained.
Yeah. Okay, just making sure.
Okay. So yeah, we head out.
Okay. So where are you heading?
To the common area.
Okay. When you get to the common area, there's only two people there. Mackenzie is there reading something, and Zusha is there, and she's just sort of sitting by the fire. Maybe she's reading something too. Okay, she's reading something too.
All right.
And as you come in, she's like, "Oh, hello."
What time of day is it?
It is now probably about, let's say, 4 o'clock.
I'll give her a good evening greeting and ask her what is she reading.
Let's see, what is she reading?
1001 Ways to Skin a Cat.
The Cat in the Hat. It's my favorite book.
You got me. All the literature in my head just went flying out the window. She's reading Wuthering Heights. I don't know.
Okay.
And she's like, "Oh, I read this as a child. It's a great story."
And what about Mackenzie? What is he doing? He's just reading.
Yeah.
Does he notice
He
us?
actually seems to have some papers in his hand that he's going over. Looks like insurance forms or something like that.
I see. So I'll look around and I'll say, "Where is everyone?" I would think that this place would be lively with the Sarathians.
He says, "Well, laddie," he says, "I don't know." He says, "Everybody's kind of to themselves, I guess." He says, "Not too long ago," he says, "maybe a couple of hours ago," he says, "Karakov was here with me, but he just suddenly jumped up and left."
Yeah,
So I don't know what that was all about.
What is going on with Karakov? He looked like he was injured.
He says, I have no idea.
When he was sitting with you, did he say anything odd or peculiar?
Well, he was sitting here, and all of a sudden he jumped. He jumped like like somebody'd hit him, or like, I don't know. It was like he was just suddenly startled. He leapt up to his feet, and he said something. What was it? Something like, he cursed, and he said, "Why don't they stop?" And he just disappeared, and I was quite honestly, I was kind of like, what the hell? And off he went. He didn't say anything else to me.
Karakov is alive, yes, or is he dead?
Karakov?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's alive. He's I think I told you, he's an arms dealer.
Do you think, and I look at the group and Mackenzie, maybe, do you know what happens if someone tries to wake you up or you hear something in the waking world, but you're in the dreamlands?
I don't know.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe there was something in the waking world that was bleeding through into the dreamlands, and he could hear kind of both going on.
He says, well, I imagine if something wakes you up in the waking world, it wakes you up. You're suddenly pulled away from here.
How long have you been traveling in the dreamlands?
Oh, me? Years. Few years. Since I've, Henry's always trying to convince me to throw my totem into the Gulf of Nodens, but I got a lot of business still to do. So I'm not quite to it. Maybe this time. I don't know. And he sort of slaps his briefcase that's chained to his hand. Handcuffed to his hand. His wrist.
Would I have noticed, you mentioned it in passing, but would I have noticed that he's doing insurance form?
I mean, has he done that in the past? Probably not, but in this case, and oddly now that when you're talking to him, you don't see the insurance forms. They don't really seem to be there. You swear that he had insurance forms a second ago. Something that he was going over. Did he put them on the table? No, they're not on the table. Did he slip them somehow back into the briefcase? Maybe. But,
can we not do a spot hidden to see?
It won't make any difference. They might not really be real. They might be part of his whatever reason why he's here.
Does that actually manifest beyond just our totem on this train, like the reason why we're here?
No, not really.
Okay.
Of course, you can assume that since he's been in the Dreamlands a lot longer than you have, he might be better at making things out of nothing than you guys are.
Has he told us the purpose of his briefcase yet? Other than it's for business?
He called it his totem.
Okay. That's what I thought it was. What business do you have in the Dreamlands exactly?
He says, "Me? I don't know. I travel. I travel from one city to another. I occasionally negotiate contracts. Um, it's just sort of my general knowledge. Whatever contract needs to be settled, I help them settle it. That's what I do in the real world."
That unfortunately doesn't give me a whole lot of information as to what your business is in the Dreamlands.
Well, we bring ourselves with us, don't we? He says, "I'll tell you what." He says, "Since we're friends," he says, "this here," and he once again pats his thing, "what I do in the real world is I do forms and insurance and diplomatic negotiations, and I've been doing that for the past 35 years. And he said, when I first got into it, I thought it was kind of exciting because I got to travel. And he says, but you know what? After a while, you realize that just about every place you go is about the same as every other place. He says, and after 35 years, I'm really sick of it and bored with it. But it puts food in my refrigerator, and wait, do we have refrigerators? Yeah, we should have refrigerators by now.
Icebox.
It puts food in my icebox, and I get to occasionally go on vacation. Though quite honestly, I always take my paperwork with me on vacation so that I can do some of it wherever I am. And he says, so if I throw this into the Gulf of Nodens, then I'm going to at last be free of that burden.
And what keeps you from that burden, or from
I'm kind of fond of food in my icebox, and he says it's a struggle.
I see.
And he says, I think that's why it's chained to my arm.
I understand. I look over to the young lady and I ask her, how about you? What brings you to the Dreamlands?
She says, I would live here if I could.
So this is a vacation for you, a holiday for you, more or less.
She says, I do my best not to go back to the real world as much as possible, but I'm starting to think maybe I need to.
And why is that?
Because this is all a dream.
Yes. I understand.
She says, you've seen me dance, yes?
Yes, you're quite skilled.
She says, and would you, and she sort of sits down the book and she stands up and does sort of a little twirl and a little graceful this, and she says, and would you say that I'm beautiful? And she is.
And I'll agree, yeah. You're quite stunning, young lady.
She says, well, in the real world, I'm a fat, clumsy oaf. She says, I work at a small circus. And people laugh at me.
Well, it sounds like the dream world is a better place for you anyway than the real world. So no wonder.
Yes, but my body's not going to. She says, in order to get here, I do any number of drugs. And
I see.
She says, I think that it might be time. I think that it might be time to give up my ridiculous dreams and go back to the real world and try to fix it.
This is what you would love to do in the real world, correct?
Of course, but I don't know. She says, I just don't think that it's ever going to come true.
Well, what you can do in the real world is you can leave the circus and get actual classic training in dancing and make your dreams come true in the real world. It'll take time and, but you can definitely achieve it.
Why don't you do a persuade roll?
Oh boy. I am not. Oh wow, I made it.
Wow. There you go.
She looks at you, and she's got a look on her face like nobody's ever really given her confidence before. And she's like, you really think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She says, well, she smiles and she says, you've given me a lot to think about. Maybe I'll reconsider. And she sort of does a little twirl and dances over towards you and gives you a quick kiss on the cheek. And then she goes back to her room.
All right. As she's walking away, I don't notice any sort of weapons on her, do I?
No, just a big gigantic iron claw. No. No, there's no weapons on her.
Okay.
So this was a bust.
For now. For now.
Can I ask Mackenzie a question?
Sure.
Mr. Mackenzie, I don't know, how long have you... Well, there's no such thing as time, really, per se, but in the Dreamlands. But I'm curious, do you know who would be the most experienced in the Dreamlands besides, obviously, Henry?
You mean in the whole of the Dreamlands?
Well, I mean specifically traveling on this train.
Well, King Kuranis is by far the most experienced in the Dreamlands.
Well, like, for instance, was Madame Bonneval here when you got here?
Madame Bonneval has been here supposedly for hundreds of years.
That's kind of what I'm asking. Like, so she's been here probably the longest, except for maybe even Henry.
Yeah, I'd say so. And of course, you might be asking yourself the question, since Henry has only been here doing this since, I believe, 1927, how is it that Madame Bonneval can be from 14 whatever?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, that's the Dreamlands.
Welcome to the Dreamlands. Do you know, other than Henry, do you know who has a good handle on the Dreamlands? In other words, understanding it all, being able to control their totem, and being able to shape-vert however they please.
Well, you got two different kinds of people here in the Dreamlands. Two different kinds of people here on the Dream Train. He says, you've got us, the people from Earth, who are here specifically because we have a burden. We're the reason why Henry created the train. And he says, but then you've also got passengers who are denizens of the Dreamlands, and they don't have a totem, and they have no intention of going all the way to the Gulf of Nodens. They have other business. The Sarnathians, for instance, and the Ibians.
And they pretty much just use the train as a train, then. Is that
exactly?
Yeah.
Has anybody actually disembarked at at Noden?
Oh yeah. I've never seen it, but yes. There's been lots of people, most of the people on the train who are not denizens or are not reluctant, like Karakov and me.
Well,
Madame Bruja.
What would happen if somebody of Dreamlands disembarked there?
He says, "Well, have you met Alexei Pleshikov, the Russian guy at the tea room?"
Yeah.
He's not allowed. That's why he built That's why he built the cafe in Uther, because he's friends with Henry, but he can't get on the train anymore.
I see.
He found some other way into the Dreamlands afterwards.
I see.
But quite honestly, I don't know what the totem was. Henry would know.
I'll make it a point to ask him.
So it's safe to assume that the Sarnathians and even maybe the Ibians would have maybe possibly even a greater control of things in the Dreamlands than even the Matt or Henry, because they've been here, they live here, so technically they're more attuned with the Dreamlands than them.
Not necessarily, my friend. It's the Dreamlands that we're in right now are created by the minds of human beings. He says, I think that perhaps even the Ibians and the Sarnathians were created by human beings. We just don't know who or when or where they come from. They can't use something like Vert. It doesn't exist for them. The whole universe is made out of that.
But if the whole universe is made out of Vert for them, couldn't they, and if we use Vert to meld and create, couldn't they do the same thing? Couldn't they just will something?
He says, I really don't know. I think that if somehow the Sarnathians were to get into our world, in the real world, they might be able to pick up a rock and turn it into something else. But here, a rock is a rock. For us, on the other hand, a rock is not a rock.
That's
It's like, so I don't know the answers. I'm sorry.
All right.
Can I mean, I know that no one's asked, but can I do a psychology roll to see if he's, he seems friendly, but is there anything underlying there? Like, especially during the conversation where he was like, oh, I do business and I do work, and that's all you need to know. I felt like he was kind of trying to hide something. Is it possible for me to do a psychology roll to see if there's anything underlying that he's not telling us? Like he's withholding?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I got a 50, which is exactly my psychology. All right.
He seems like, at first glance, he seems friendly. He seems open and honest. But you suspect that it's diplomacy. If that's what his business is, then he's very well practiced at sounding like he's being friendly when he's either not or he's completely indifferent. But he sounds like he's being friendly.
Can I tell if he's being indifferent in the conversation with us?
No.
I mean, okay. Then perhaps it's time to find Karakov and maybe even the Sarnathians.
Yep.
Big quick question. I just thought of something. Where were we at 2 o'clock?
I was in the. I was with the madman.
And you guys were in the lounge.
Okay.
And who else was with us?
So it was just one.
Were the Sarnathians there as well as Yellow Eyes?
No, you haven't seen much of the Sarnathians. They've stuck to their room mostly, but occasionally you've seen one walking down a hallway or suspiciously soon after you find an Ibian jammed in the corner. And when you do see the Sarnathians, they're always smiling and giggly and
I haven't
self-concerned.
I'm just putting it together then. So logically, I think we can rule out some people here. So we can rule out the crazy man. We can rule out Henry. We can rule out I'm trying to think. When we rescued the Ibian from the lounge car, we went down and we talked to them.
Yes.
Were all Ibians at that point present? I think you said there were 5. There were 6 total.
Yeah, I think they were all there. Now, as you were recalling that incident, give me, say, a knowledge roll. Frank.
Intelligence, right?
Yeah.
65 out of 70, so that's a pass.
Okay. As you're thinking, you think now that when you were down there, you saw some red smears on the wall.
Oh.
And you didn't think of it because it's pretty swampy down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose you could say it's kind of colorful because it's swampy, but there's lots of greens and browns and stuff. But there might have been some reds on the wall. Maybe some red stains on the floor too. You didn't think about it at the time.
And then I'll just say that at the same time, and I'm doing this in front of Mackenzie too, so it's not like I'm really hiding this, but I'm also not, at least I don't think I am, offering too much information. Well, I'll turn to my colleagues and say, we had a description, and maybe first thing we should actually just go and check and see if that matches the Ibians.
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, and not only that, but once again, the Ibians seem pretty secluded themselves. They wouldn't go that far back down the train. Maybe a Sarnathian.
Yeah.
Maybe a Sarnathian.
Well,
right.
Here's the thing too that I'm starting to think about too, and I mean maybe I'm leaning towards it being the Sarnathians, but we found 2 Ibians in the bathhouse. And beyond the bathhouse is the cabin for the cats. And what I'm thinking is,
to correct you, you found one Sarnathian in the bathhouse area, and you found one outside the lounge.
Right.
Stuck up in a corner.
Oh, do you mean the Ibians or the Sarnathians?
Ibians, sorry.
Okay.
The first one I found was in a bathhouse, and that's going back to the cat car.
Right.
What I'm thinking here is the Sarnathians, and I guess we're gonna walk and talk, right? We're gonna head down to the Ibians.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But I'm thinking that I don't know the Sarnathians, the way that you're describing them, Eldridge. They seem like the type that will do something mischievous like this, just for the fun of it, and I guess prank, pull a prank and say, oh, okay, well, we're going to go ahead, we're going to kill this cat, we're going to put it in one of the humans' rooms so that they can be horrified, we're going to blame it on the Sarnathians, and we're going to have a nice little giggle at all the confusion.
The Sarnathians do strike me as they have no empathy for creatures like that they see as lesser than them, and that even means us. They think of me as the closest amongst the humans that are like them, which is why they find me so appealing. But in the long run, they have no sympathy. They don't care. They don't care about us, and they don't care about the Ibians. And what's stopping them from caring about the cats?
True.
Yeah. Dr. Dawkins, something I just thought of. When you opened your footlocker, did you happen to notice any smell?
No. Or did I?
No.
Because when you helped the Ibians get unstuck, just by being close to them, you stunk yourself.
Right. And I mean, we would have noticed it the moment we walked into my chambers.
I would think so.
This is true.
So, what if we go down there and there is blood?
Now, I keep forgetting, but the cats are with you too.
Oh, okay, I was going to ask you that.
So there are maybe 3 or 4 cats walking around with you now.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let's head down that way.
Yeah.
So you get to the observation platform. You open up the trapdoor, and you head down to the iians. They're all present, and you do see red smears on the wall here and there. Maybe some on the ground too.
And it looks like blood.
Well, it's bright red.
Blood is
And
usually
one
a
of the
darker-
one of the iians reaches in and pulls out the squeaker, and he's like, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. What may I do for you?"
Just a bit of information from you. What can you tell me about the Sarnathians?
Oh, the Sarnathians are horrible, horrible people. They destroyed our home city. And
Why would they do that?
because they're evil. They did not like us. They decided to drive us into the sea and kill our women and our children. They speared children with spears, and they're horrible, horrible people. And now we want justice for what they've done.
It's spears. What were these spears like?
I don't know. It was a long time ago. Spears are spears.
Were
Wow,
they?
this
I
would be a
mean, were
different
they?
sass.
I'm thinking, were they like a trident type of a spear? Were they just a straight spear?
I don't know. This was many, many hundreds of years ago.
And your people never had stories about this.
We have many stories about it, but they don't include what kind of spear they bought or they used. He says, if anything is wrong on the train, it's going to be the Sarnathians.
I'm gonna grab my compatriots and the cats and kind of pull them to the side and say, the iians want justice. They're going to the king to demand justice for destroying their homeland. What if the Sarnathians did this down here as to frame the iians to discredit the justice that they're going to claim?
That could be the case. I'll turn to the squeaker and I'll ask, have you seen any any Sarnathians down here during your time?
We would never let those filthy Sarnathians down here. No, never. And you notice the cats are sniffing at the red stains.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they look for a moment. They seem interested, and then they sort of just stop being interested. And one of them sort of goes over to this iian and looks up at it like it wants to say something. And when it does, the iian looks down at it, and with the squeaker, he lowers his hand down and touches the cat with the squeaker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And the squeaker says, "Beet juice."
I'm sorry, yeah, I didn't catch that. You sort of
He says, "Beet juice."
beet juice.
Wow, they're smearing their food on the wall. All right. So the iians did not do it, and they're too scared to come up more than one at a time.
And they were being harassed by the Sarnathians.
Oh, also, I should mention you're there, that their claws are not shaped correctly to have made the wounds. They're thin, they're long and needle-like. There's no real, they're more like nails, so there's no real thickness to them. They wouldn't have made the marks.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Okay. So, I think that we only have what, 3 suspects left? The Madam, Karakov, and the Sarnathians, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are gone. They're in their rooms.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Mackenzie, when since the cats were around us, did he react to them in any way?
Not particularly, no.
Okay, he sort of ignored them.
Yeah.
And I guess they were like kind of sniffing him out too. And they didn't react.
Zusha likes the cats, so she was petting the cats as she was talking to you.
Okay.
I say, and this is just me, I say that we get Henry. Henry's the only one that has access to the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I say we get Henry, and we... but if I was going to say, like, we bust down the door and we say, like, you know, we interrogate some people or we ask them questions, but barging into someone's room, a whole group of us, that's going to be suspicious and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, we can do away with the pretenses and just go on the full scale investigation and say we're looking into it. The other thing too that I'm thinking too is that the way that you describe these Sarnathians, if we were to go up and ask them, did they murder Ghost, they would probably say, sure, it's just a cat, you know?
But if they did that, then we'd know.
Exactly.
So...
You'd have your murderer.
Yeah. So I say...
but in their eyes, they may not even think that they're murdering a sentient being. I don't know how they would completely think, but I don't know if people here in the Dreamlands actually hunt. They look at them, they say, oh, these are lower animals, you know, we can just hunt them. We don't even know if the king would actually take us seriously if we were to bring this in front of them.
It's highly likely. I'd make you roll for this, but it's highly likely that everyone in the Dreamlands knows about the Cats of Uther.
Okay.
Can I turn to the Ibian that's holding the squeaker
Mm-hmm.
and say, excuse me, sir, is there some... Should I call you by some name?
He says, we don't really use the things you call names.
How about just for us, then I'll refer to you as Mr. X.
Okay.
Mr. X, does that device, the golden frog that you're holding, does that work on everything? I noticed you just did that with a cat.
Cats are highly telepathic, like us. But yes, it works on most things.
Would you be willing
very useful.
Would you be willing to accompany us as we explore the train a little bit?
I'm not sure, everyone. Why are you exploring the train?
And I'll turn to Eldridge and Dr. Dawkins. Like,
I'll give you a nod.
Yeah, perhaps we should just drop the act and come out and say it.
okay. So I'll just say, tell him one of the cats on board appears to have been murdered. And we're
the
trying
Sarnathians did it.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm wondering if your device here, I believe Henry called it a squeaker, might help us get to the bottom of it. And, you know, if you could just confirm it with us.
He says, I do not think the other people on the train would appreciate our presence. And he goes over to one of the other iians and reaches into a pouch on its side and pulls out another squeaker. And he says, "You may have this one."
Oh. I'll turn it when we're done.
Thank you.
And he says something along the lines of, "Make sure you feed it plenty of flies when you get the chance."
I will do my best. Is there any information I need to know on how to work this?
No, it works. Actually, as soon as he puts it in your hand, the squeaker in your hand says, "Is there anything I need to know how to work this?" So.
And I quickly take it out of my hand and put it in the pouch because I'm afraid of it reading my mind.
All right.
I can hold on to it.
He gives you a little pouch to go with it. So.
Sure, I'll hand it to Dr. Dawkins.
All right. So you've got a squeaker in your pouch.
All right. Actually, I want to see how it works, so I'll try to communicate with the cats that are around us to see if I can pick up on anything that they're thinking.
What do you... okay, actually, when you hold the squeaker down to where they are, all you're getting is, "Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, nothing here, let's go,
All right.
let's go."
This actually works. We'll help out. Okay, so let's head up. Now, I asked them as we're going up, when you were in my cabin, were you able to pick up a scent that wasn't us?
No scent. Strange scent.
Strange how?
Not smelled before.
Have you smelled Sarnathians before?
Sarnathians not smell like that.
I see. And I'll relay that to my companions. They're saying that the scent by the box that Ghost was found in didn't match the Sarnathians either. So it might be something else.
You know, I just remembered we forgot somebody. The wine merchant. We're on.
Yeah.
Moronimer.
Oh, the last, I can't remember what they're called. Starts with an S, I'm pretty sure.
Cerubian.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got 4 suspects.
Well, I remember that I in particular was talking with Mononimer during the time that they were supposedly in our cabin.
Not necessarily.
No? Okay.
So we got 4 suspects. Who do we want to bust down the door first? Because I'm going to say this now. Once we enter into someone's room and say, "Hey, we're investigating," and they're not the person, then we have a chance of it not particularly going well. At least if we get it right the first time, we'll have them on. So we'll have the jump on them. It'll be a surprise. But after that, it's not going to be a surprise. They're going to know we're looking for them.
I agree. I feel like we should have Henry with us at this point.
Well, yeah.
We miss you. Henry's here.
Henry, it's really creepy that you just teleport, just arrive.
Stop sneaking up behind us like that.
Yeah, we've got to learn how to do that trick actually.
Henry, we would like to. Everyone that's currently on the train and not in their rooms is not a suspect. We've investigated the dancer, Mackenzie, the Yibians. The cats are even saying that Sarnathians don't smell like the strange scent that they picked up in our room.
And Henry immediately turns to the cats, and he comes after a few minutes of conversation. He says to you, he says, "Well, the cats aren't saying anything other than their strange smells, but they're not saying anything other than that. They're not identifying anything."
Exactly.
Right.
But
Well,
they say that... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
They said that Sarnathians don't smell like that they know what Sarnathians smell like, which means that it's a new smell for them. It's a strange smell.
Yes.
We're thinking that it's one of the 4 groups that are currently in their rooms. The Cerubian, the Sarnathians, the Madame, and then I almost said Chekhov, but that's not his name because that's a Star Trek character.
And now that you've said that, I can't think of his name. Karakov.
Yeah, Karakov. And Karakov. Now, we need your help in getting into their rooms because we can't get into them. We're hoping that you can perhaps help.
Well, monsieur, we can ask them to come into their rooms. I'm afraid you'll probably have to explain why. I can, of course, demand to come into their rooms. It is an invasion of privacy. We can't even figure out how anyone could have gotten into your home, monsieur.
That is the problem. I turned to the cats and I asked them if they've ever smelled a Cerubian before.
Henry does the translating, and he says, yes, they've smelled Meronimer. He's been a member. He's been a passenger on my train a number of times.
Okay.
All right. So now we need to entertain the idea that maybe Jeff's theory about something getting on board is only slightly correct. What if someone brought something on board?
Actually, were the cats with us when we were in the chamber with the madman?
Was that before? Yes, there were cats there.
Okay, they didn't react to him.
No.
Okay.
Well, so the cats, are we able to use the cats to, so they smelled Myanmar and he's not the one.
They've smelled everybody on the train.
It's something new that they haven't ever smelled before.
I'm still thinking that something came aboard when we were at our last stop, something that we haven't seen.
And Henry's like, that is just almost as impossible as the idea of somebody getting into your room.
And yet that happened, so
What happens here?
Well, that's the question.
Okay. This is gonna sound weird, so just bear with me. Okay.
We're in the Dreamlands. Everything sounds weird.
Okay. Vert for us is kind of like everything, and we can just kind of make it. It's like there. Like if we want it, we have it, right?
Right.
Vert can be anything. Okay. So so Karakov leaves. He's like, oh, what's going on? There's noise. He leaves. Next time we see him, he's bandaged up. Okay. And we also see the ghost is dead around that same time. However, Ghost Karakov. What if Karakov made something with Vert? Because you said that his totem is alive and it's moving, right?
Yeah.
What if he made something and it's in his room and it got out, he can't control it, or it got loose on the train, Ghost got in its way, it attacked Ghost, and the creature
that still wouldn't explain why Ghost ended up in my trunk. And I mean, I'm actually going back with Karakov because the only ones who actually see me interact with Ghost was Karakov, the woman, and Mackenzie. That was the first time we were on this Dreamland Express. We came back. I was looking for a ghost, and
the squeaker wants to say something apparently.
Sorry, guys. It's Amazon asking if I want to review something. I don't know how Amazon gets in the Dreamlands, but apparently Amazon can get you anywhere.
Apparently the squeaker can hear it really quick. That sounded like the squeaker to me.
The squeaker.
I agree with Wade, or with Dr. Theo, that the Karakov. What if?
But Henry's like shaking his head, and he's like, "But there is no way, Monsieur, that Karakov could get into your room."
Well, under that logic, Henry, the only way Ghost could have gotten in the trunk is if Dr. Dawkins did it.
right.
So,
or me, Monsieur, if you're going to say it that way.
Right, that's what I mean. And I don't think either one of those are the options that we're looking at. So clearly something is able to get into our rooms.
Have you looked to see?
Look to see
if there's anything in your room.
Like maybe it's still there.
Maybe there's like a hole in reality or something.
Let's go back to the room. So I want to look it over again.
As we walk and talk, I want to ask Henry this. We brought up that I tried getting into Karakov's room earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, is it possible for someone to have enough knowledge of the Dreamlands to punch a hole into our rooms?
Not without me knowing, Monsieur. Not on this train.
All right. That kind of answers that.
He says, Monsieur, I am...
You're linked with the train, yeah.
Yes, Monsieur. That is why I'm also surprised that the cat could even be killed on my train. If you were to pull a knife and try to stab your friend here, the train would stop you.
Were we given anything recently?
Given anything?
Like he's right. If anyone were trying to try and attack another person, the train would have
restrained them.
And we can't find any trace on the train of blood. What if Ghost wasn't killed on the train?
But I don't understand, Monsieur. He's on the train. How could he? He couldn't. We can assume, Monsieur, that wherever Ghost was killed, that whoever did it could not throw Ghost off the train, because the train would have simply retrieved him. So I don't know.
Dreamlands is weird, man. That's all I'm going to say, Henry.
So you've arrived back at your rooms.
Yeah.
I'll start looking around, like in the cabinets. I'm wondering, because we were able to bring certain things into the Dreamlands. I'm wondering if any of the pieces of the statue has shown up here.
Statue. Oh, you mean the Sedef card?
Yeah.
No, you haven't seen anything like that.
I'm wondering if it has some sort of influence even from the outside world in here.
Well, go ahead and do an idea roll.
I make that. That's a hard roll too, so
Okay.
I made that.
The second you step into your room, it hits you like a ton of bricks. You have 2 windows in your room.
I'll look out the windows, see if I can see anything.
Okay. I am not going to have you do a spot hidden because at this point it's kind of obvious. There are both smear marks and scratch marks on the windowsill and along what looks like the outside of the train.
Is it possible for the train to extend one of its tentacles so I can hang outside and examine it a bit closely?
Oui, monsieur.
All right, so I'll do that.
All right. So the tentacle comes in and lifts you up and pulls you actually out of the window. So now you are being well supported, almost as if you're sitting in a chair by the tentacle, and you're outside the train.
Okay.
With the wind rushing by, and you can see that there are marks going up onto the top of the train and along the side of the train to other windows and things like that.
How many other windows?
Well, I mean,
Is it stretching?
You can't see everything from here, but
it does seem like it's stretching some distance.
It looks like it could be. Well, what are the other? Before I get to that, what are the other 2 doing? What are you guys doing, Frank and Eldridge?
Do you want to go first, Frank?
Well, I just have 2 questions. When we initially noticed the smear on the trunk, was the trunk lid open?
No. It wasn't locked, but it wasn't open.
Okay. And I'll just real quickly investigate the door itself. If the lock was jimmied or anything unusual.
Nothing nothing on the door to the cabin. No.
Okay, that's all I'm going to do.
I'm going to do a spot hidden just to see because we've been in this room before, if anything seems out of place, moved or jostled or it's tipped over, something that can give me just some sort of idea, because someone had to have come in to put Ghost in the actual physical trunk. I want to see if there's any evidence of someone walking into the room or moving about the room in such a manner.
Other than the scratches around the window, there doesn't seem to be anything out of place.
Another possibility is that actually Ghost was attacked in another compartment of the train and then managed to get here, and that's where he chose to pass.
We would have seen blood trail.
That's what we're just seeing it now, aren't we?
Well, not the blood. There's no. From my understanding, there's no trail leading from the window to.
There's a few spots here and there, a few smears, but it's not.
There's nothing in the room itself.
Oh.
Right.
It's outside the train, which means that something had to have flown in or was clinging to the train itself.
Right.
Well, Henry says, all right, now we know that something came through the window. And he says, there's only one possibility. He says, there's no way anything can get on this train that I don't let on this train. So it couldn't have come from the outside. However, there's nothing on this train that can get off the train without Henry knowing. So whatever it is must still be on the train. And apparently it can climb along the outside of the train.
I'm going to, while I'm out there, what do I see though? Anything?
You can see slight gouges in. Now we're not talking about the animal. We're talking about the pavilion sort of structure.
Okay.
So there are places where you can see as if something tried to grab a hold of, let's say, a pillar or a railing or a part of the decoration of the train and gouged it as it went. But there's definitely evidence that something moved along the outside of the train.
All right. Does it look like they climbed up on the top of the train?
It does. And as you can, of course, Henry is trying to assist you by making the tentacles do what you want, but he's lifted you up and you're moving along the train itself. And actually, once you're up on top of the pavilion, he can set you down and you can walk along the top of it.
Okay.
It looks like whatever it is traveled along the top of the train, and occasionally there are places where you can see that it sort of goes to one side or the other where there are windows. But without hanging over the side, you can't really see whose rooms they are.
Okay.
Actually, even then, you might not be able to see whose rooms they are, unless you're going to go peeking in their windows. But
no, not at this point. I'll go as far as the trail leads.
Okay. The train. This is really weird. But the trail seems to go. We've got a dreamland situation here. When you're inside the train seems to be nearly infinite. Out here it does not.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to go all along this pavilion. And if you ask Henry, from your perspective, you're seeing all of the sleeping cars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Even though out here it doesn't seem to go on forever.
Okay.
So it's likely that whatever it is has visited everyone's, well, maybe not everyone's. It seems to have most of the scratches on 2 other windows, but you don't know whose they are.
I'll kind of peek down to see.
Like I say, it's not really. One of them has the curtains closed, and the other one you can't really see from this angle.
Okay.
You might consider
knocking.
Well, doing the opposite when you're looking in the rooms, checking the windowsills to see if anything.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
While he's doing that, I'm going to start searching our rooms.
Tom?
Okay. Yes.
Can I go to the cargo hold?
Sure.
I'm going to go to the cargo hold, Frank. If it is on board the train and it can't get off because he would have known, what's the only dangerous animal on board the train that we know of?
Well, we don't know what it is, but I see where you're getting at. It's Karakov's totem.
Totem.
Yeah.
Karakov was the one injured.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go down to the cargo hold. If you want to come with me, that'd be really swell.
So just give me 1 second, and I'm just going to real quick just do a quick sweep and just like lift the covers of the bed. And
you find nothing unusual in your rooms.
Okay. Let's go.
Let's go.
Unless you want to wait for Dr. Dawkins.
Well, then Dr. Dawkins is on his way back.
Okay, so we should wait.
Right. So he's deposited back in the room through the window.
Okay.
And I'll relay all the information that I've come across while I was up there.
The outside of the train, that is... I hadn't thought of that, monsieur. I will have to somehow fix this in the future, but I don't know how. But oh, great! So it must still be on the train. There's no way it can get off the
If
train.
something were to land on top of the train, you would know about it
Yes.
from the outside.
It's difficult to explain, but nothing could land on the outside, the top of the train.
To which
But
I will then explain my theory that it is Karakov's totem,
Has
and that it
anybody?
has gotten out of its crate.
I'll ask Henry. Has anybody's totem ever posed a danger to the passengers on your train,
no,
or is it possible for that to happen?
possible? I do not know, Monsieur, what is possible, but it's never happened before. But then we've never had a murder before either, Monsieur.
Okay.
Mes amis.
Okay, so I'm gonna run to the cargo hold.
Okay.
You guys want to come and have my back? That'd be real nice.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay.
So while Dr. Dawkins is using the facilities, you guys are walking. We'll wait for him to get to the cargo hold. But what do you guys want to do as you're walking, or what are you going to do?
I was trying to think back. I think it was Dr. Dawkins and I, we checked in on Karakov's totem earlier. I don't remember why or when.
I remember you
No.
going there.
It was during the when we were having lunch. I think you got up and you went to check. He wasn't in there, and his box was still there.
Is that when he fleed the?
Yeah, he said something like, "Don't you hear them? Don't you hear it?" or something like that, and he ran off.
Right. Okay. All right. So you guys make your way to the fourgon, and when you get there and you're looking for the totem, it's still there. It's a big box, big crate. It's got gigantic chains all around it, and you can hear what sounds like rustling, scratching coming from the inside. Now, the cats kind of become alert. They hear the scratching and they become immediately curious as to the scratching, the way a cat would become, if he heard a scratching inside of a box.
Mm-hmm.
So they're moving around the crate and they're sniffing at it and they're trying to figure out. One jumps up on top of the crate and is looking at it and trying to see if there's a way they can find out what's inside, but they're acting like cats.
Henry, do you know what his totem is?
He's like, I do not know, Monsieur. He says, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that what he is, he's reluctant to explain himself, but I suspect that it's guilty. He's guilty of he feels guilty, and this is his guilt, which he wants to throw into the Gulf of Oceans.
Mm-hmm. And I think you described it one time before. It sounded like a bunch of small things, versus one large.
Yeah, it's rustling coming from all over inside of it, little scratches.
Okay, who's got the key?
It's like it's Karakov's.
Do the cats, and I should really ask Dr. Dawkins because he has the squeaker. But
You can ask Henry.
Okay, the cats are acting. They're acting like cats, and this is the first time they've actually acted interested in something and stuck with it. Is this?
Henry says to you, they're curious, Monsieur. They want to know what's in the box.
Oh, I'm glad that cats in the Dreamlands are still just exactly like cats in the real world. Just telepathic. Okay, so that idea was bust. Anybody got anything else?
Well, so I'll state the obvious. Henry, can you retrieve Karakov and get him in here?
He's like, Oui, monsieur, I can go and get Monsieur Karakov. Are you sure you do not want to come and... what are we going to tell him, monsieur?
I'll look to Dr. Dawkins on this one.
We can tell him the truth, that we're looking into this murder, and we can ask him directly, what's in the box.
He says, all right, monsieur, give me a few moments. I will see if I can bring him. And he turns around and goes. So what are you going to do while you're in here?
Search around, I guess. See if there's any other... Because if there's something on the train, it could also go outside of the train. Maybe there's something here.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me ask, is there any sort of scratches on the outside of this box? Maybe blood or something like that?
The box looks kind of beaten up, but you don't see any blood and you don't see any gouges like you saw on the outside of the train.
Okay. I'm just wondering if Karakov, something broke out and then he tried to force it back into the box, and that's how he got wounded.
What if it's not Karakov? Maybe there's like Madame Bonaval's items.
Yeah, we've never seen her totem.
So can we start looking around the foregone and see if there's anything unusual?
Yeah, let's do it.
Go ahead and do a spot hidden.
Okay.
All of us are just...
Sure, all of you. You're all looking.
Make it. Yes.
25. Made it.
Made it.
You all three made it?
Yeah.
You don't see anything unusual at all.
God damn it.
That was cruel.
That was.
No, because if you had all failed, then you still wouldn't know. And it would,
Right.
It would drive us crazy.
Are there any windows in this foregone?
there are not. There is, however, a big cargo door, but it is closed.
What's in the cargo?
No, it's for loading, and it's to the outside of the train. It's where the where the train itself loads.
Here's the other question. They picked up lilies or something like that from the last stop?
That's correct. Yes.
Let's check that crate or that particular shipment. Maybe something was on the inside of that.
Okay, we'll assume that you did all of that when you got your spot hidden. So there's nothing. There's no evidence in here that there's any kind of creature or a thing running around. So about this time, Henry comes back, and Karakov is behind him. And Karakov comes and he says, "So, what is this all about? Henry said that you wanted to ask me some questions, and he brought us in here."
Yeah, we are currently investigating a murder that's happened on this train.
A murder?
Yes, a murder.
And he looks over at Henry, and he's like, "How is that possible on your train? I thought that was not possible." And Henry's like, nevertheless, monsieur, there has been a murder." And he's like, who was murdered?
Who is not really a big concern right now for you, but we need to ask you a few questions.
All right, I will do anything I can do to help you. What do you need to know?
We understand that this is your personal information, your personal totem here, but we were questioning what sort of totem do you have, and is it dangerous to everyone on the train? And how did you get that wound on your hand?
Which question do you want me to answer first?
You can answer the first one.
Well, let me explain to you that what my totem is none of your goddamn business. He says, "But no, it's not a danger to anyone on the train." And he says, "And I cut myself at lunch."
I don't remember him cutting himself at lunch, do I?
Speaker.
It wasn't lunch. It was when I was with Mackenzie in the lounge.
I pull out the squeaker to see if he, to see if I can pick up some of his I guess, mental status or whatever's going on in his head. See if I can pick up any sort of signals, more or less.
No, it doesn't work like that. So.
How do you work? How do you work?
It translates. It doesn't. It says, I'm speaking your language. And actually, he just immediately says in Russian something along the lines of, what the hell is this all about? Who was murdered? And he says it to you, Eldridge.
In Russian?
Yeah.
And I say in Russian, Ghost the cat was murdered.
He says, a cat? Shushka?
Yes.
He says, oh, that is very bad for you, Henry, yeah? And Henry's like, And he says, well, yes, I hope you find who did it, but it wasn't me.
I'm going to guess that my associates here interrogated him.
Well, not really, but
We just questioned him.
you guys can do a psychology roll on him.
I suck at psychology.
I got it.
I'm pretty good too. Try.
Oh my God! I got an 8.
Yeah, but you said you weren't going to do it.
No, I didn't say that. I said I suck at it.
I got a 37, which is okay.
Karakov he tries to sound like he's very sure of himself, but you get the distinct feeling that he's scared to death of something, and it makes him nervous, and he doesn't like being questioned. He says, I don't have anything to do with killing a cat. Why would I kill a cat? And once while you guys are talking, he does this.
I'm going to take a step forward, and with my stoic, non-blinking face, because that's just Eldritch, I'm going to look at him, and I'm going to say, what exactly is putting you on edge, Karakov? You're a reasonably sized man. You're clearly intelligent.
I'm not on edge. What do you mean putting me on edge? I am completely normal.
And while looking at him, I'm going to, because I'm making direct eye contact, my eyes are going to kind of shift over to my right, his left, and look over to the corner like I see something else.
And he doesn't react to that, and he's like, okay, Henry, I've never been treated like this on board your train before. He says, if you want something, ask me, but don't play games with me.
What is wrong with your hand?
I told you, I cut myself.
On what?
On I was eating with the knife, and I cut myself.
That's so clearly a lie. And I'm going to say that's so clearly a lie. Oh, Tom. You're so red in the face. I'm so red in the face. Look at my face. All right. So I'm going to say, Karakov, you're clearly, obviously lying, and very abruptly I'm going to grab his wrist, and I'm going to lift up his hand and show him the scar, put it at eye level, and I'm going to say, in the most intimidating way possible, while also being a creep and staring at him directly and not blinking and just doing this constantly. Completely stoic, completely monotone. Say, what did you cut yourself on? Can I do an intimidate?
Well, what? Explain what you did again. You grabbed his hand and did what?
I grabbed his wrist and I raised it up to where, the blood, and you'd see the blood and stuff like that, yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a slice, and it goes all the way from here down to here.
Okay.
And he's like surprised that you've done that, and he sort of yanks away, and he's like, all right. I cut myself on my cutlass in my room.
What were you talking about during lunch? You said something about hearing things.
Yes, he says, I'm sure you hear them too. It sounds like cannon fire going off, and it startled me, and I went to my room to get my cutlass to make sure I was protected, and I accidentally grabbed the wrong part of the blade, and it cut my hand.
Are you sure that's what happened, or did something attack you on your way to the room?
Says, if you don't believe me, I will show you the cutlass.
I don't think that's going to be necessary, but what I'm still confused about is why you continually hear cannon fire. We can't hear cannon fire.
Of course you can. How can you not hear it? It's
Is it
like there is a battle going on outside someplace.
Is it going on now?
Can you not hear it?
No.
I'm going to, I don't really know what skill it would be, but I'm going to look at him and I'm going to say, Karakov, no one here but you can hear cannon fodder. I think it'd be persuade. I don't know how to, let him know that I am telling him the truth, but I want to convey to him that I'm telling him the truth. I think that'd be a persuade. I'm pretty sure.
Well, you can't convince somebody of something with a dice roll. It's,
yeah.
Let me ask you something. You said you're hearing cannon fire, correct? In the waking world, are you in a war zone, or were you at some point?
He's my friend. In the waking world, I'm always in a war zone. I sell arms, my friend.
Where exactly? Oh,
and this will be between us. But are you often frightened? And by frightened, I don't mean that you're a lesser man or anything like that. But are you frightened by the sound of the cannon fire?
Don't be absurd. And you can tell that he's just posturing.
I see. Yeah. Okay. I have an idea, but all right. Sorry for taking you away from whatever you were doing, Mr. Karakov. And keep this to yourself at this moment. We don't want to cause a panic on the train.
Oh, you haven't told anyone else about the dead cat?
Yeah, we just discovered it.
And he's like, I don't appreciate all of your prying into my business, but I guess I understand. If Henry's a good guy, and I don't want him to get in trouble with the cats.
Yeah, this is a diplomatic situation that we have on our hands right now.
He's like, but if you have any more questions, I'll be in my cabin.
All right.
Well, Mr. Volkov, are you willing to... you realize the situation we're in and that Henry is in. Are you willing to show at least Henry what's in your crate?
No. It's too personal.
Because right now all the evidence is pointing to your crate. Unless you
There's nothing in my crate that could kill a cat. All right. What is in the crate is... He seems extremely disturbed.
Well, again, I'll stop him and say, do you want to just tell Henry? You don't have to tell us.
And now he's getting angry, but he looks... Do you know what they say about me?
No.
He says, first of all, you should know that I am a very wealthy man in the real world. And he's very reluctant and it's very hard-pressed to say it, but he says finally, they say I have a dollar, a ruble? I don't know what they had at that time. We'll say dollar. He says, they say I have $1 for every human being that's been killed because of my arms dealings. And he says, that's what's in the trunk.
Money?
My guilt for every single one of the people that... I tell myself that I'm not responsible for their deaths, but you know, I begin to realize that maybe I am. There, I said it.
Coming to terms with that isn't something to be ashamed of, Karakov.
Yeah, I have no intention of coming to terms with it. I'm going to toss it into the Gulf of Notons and never think about it again.
Well, forgive me, I'm still confused. Why does it sound like there's something living in there?
He says, they are rats. One rat for every person I've ever killed. I don't know how many. Thousands. Millions, maybe. I sold arms to both sides in the Russian Revolution. There, how do you think that, what do you think of that, Eldridge? That is who you're speaking to.
Yeah, and he kind of glares, because only a real heartless bastard would sell to both sides and arm both sides. However, Eldridge is then going to, he kind of looks at the ground when he says that, and he looks back at Karakov and he says, you can go. You're not a suspect. I don't know why we're...
Fine. And he turns around and walks away. And shall we leave it there?
I think we gotta leave it there.
It's 11 o'clock.
I will say this so that it's on the record, so that I don't forget. But as he leaves, I'll say I'm kind of believing that there's something on this train that sort of materializes our fears or our despair or something that will hurt us personally. He's hearing these these cannon fire, which is also bringing his guilt and something that's sort of like a negative energy type of a thing to him. Ghost is my first friend here, and now that's been murdered. I'm wondering if other people are going to start suffering the same way.
The last thing Henry says before we finish the episode is, he says, Monsieur, perhaps we should consider now telling everyone on the train. After all, there is a murderer on the train.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay?
Yep.
Shall we end the episode there?
Yeah.
We shall end the episode there.
Excellent. All right. Well, our players included Thomas McKeon, Jeff Wilkins, and Wayne Worthy, with myself as the Keeper of the Secrets. Our games are played using traditional tabletop methods with music and sound effects added in post-production in order to create a richer listener experience. This is Tom Rayleigh inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.